Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Ben Wasserman Show. If you are watching this live, thank you very much. If you are watching or listening to this after, either on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify, thank you very much as well. I hope everyone is having an amazing day, an amazing week so far. Lots of New York sports going on right now. Devils, Rangers finishing up their regular season, only about 6 games left. Yankees and Mets got a nice series win over the weekend. Yankees won on Monday. Mets got absolutely destroyed. But today's episode will be about a special guest who I'm going to introduce right now. This guest used to work for the New York Yankees, but now he is a content creator for the Overtime Media Company. He makes videos for them. He broadcasts games. He does a lot of cool things. So welcome to the show, Alex Day.
Hey, what's going on, Ben? How are you doing? Thank you for having me on here. Nice introduction.
Thank you. Everybody says that. I don't really practice them too much. I kind of just look up.
Yeah, sure.
No,
Yeah,
I
sure.
practiced it one time. I looked on the LinkedIn, found a few cool things. But thanks for coming on, like I said before we went live. And how are you?
I'm good. I've been busy. I've been traveling a good amount and settling in here for a good spring of Rangers playoffs, Knicks playoffs. Yankees back in the swing of things. So yeah, I'm good, man.
Yeah, it's a good time right now, and I'm sorry if my connection, it seems like it's going in and out. I'm at school, so you could blame that on Penn State. But great time. Yankees got their series win. We'll talk about sports a little bit later, but I really want to talk about your role and how you got to overtime. So if you could explain, you don't have to explain the full story, that will be here for hours, but just quickly how you got to overtime and basically what you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, so I worked for the Yankees for 3.5 years. I was an in-house producer for them. So shooter, producer, editor on their video team. Not Yes Network, but the in-house media team.
Okay.
I got furloughed during summer 2020 during COVID, and I started making my own content. And after months of it really doing no clicks, it started to do pretty well in the beginning of 2021. Started leaning into TikTok a little bit more, and I kept going with it. And about 5-6 months later, Overtime reached out to me because they were looking to start sports betting, which is funny because they're not
Oh,
really
they didn't
doing.
even have that in 2020 or 2021?
No, they did not.
Wow, that's kinda interesting because sports betting was around before. I mean, it wasn't
Right.
legalized in as many states as it is now, but that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of a gold rush at that time. And I started working for Overtime in summer 2021. I'm coming up on 2 years there, and I'm a content creator for them. I'm a social producer. And over the last couple months, I've become one of their main announcers for 2 leagues that they started: OTE, which is Overtime Elite in Atlanta, the basketball league, and OT7, Overtime 7, which is 7-on-7 football league. So I wear a lot of different hats from them. For them, it's a great time. It's it keeps me busy because I'll do all my other kind of New York sports content on the side, and for them as well. So busy, but having a great time.
No, that's awesome. And are you like the face, and you're obviously on the air, but are you also editing for them, or do they have a whole separate team for that?
Both. They have an editing team, but Overtime is still kind of a startup, and it's a huge startup, but
Yeah.
you have to wear a lot of different hats. So I was editing this morning, I was editing yesterday, and we have editors, and they do a ton, and they do most of my stuff, but I'm still doing a lot of that too.
Yeah, and of course you do all your personal stuff for Overtime Day with the
Right.
personal TikTok. So with the broadcasting, because that's something that I'm interested in doing after college. Like, how's that been? That must be an absolute blast because these games aren't like professional. It's not like you're on CBS, but it's still high-end talent.
Yeah, exactly. I'm having a great time with it. The 2 leagues are very different. Overtime Elite, it almost feels like you're stepping into a big, Thursday night game on TNT. And if you've ever seen pictures of the OTE arena in Atlanta, it looks like something out of 2K. And
Yeah,
it has a real big game feel to it. I do a lot of those games with Isaiah Thomas, former Celtic, and
pretty sweet.
and the AMP guys. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, like
I'm not.
like Duke Dennis, and they're creatives out of Atlanta, YouTubers. So that's been a really cool experience. But then on the other side, OT7, it almost is like AAU on steroids, and there isn't the same kind of sense of like, there's nothing really to compare it to, because in a way it's just high school football out on a field, but
Yeah.
it's all the best players in the country, and these guys, they all know each other and they all have their own rivalries, and there's a lot of shit talking, and it's a good time. And I do those games with Destroying and Overtime Tom.
No, that's sweet. Is there any scouts at those games?
Yeah, I think it's mostly that all of the scouting websites are there.
Okay. Like 24/7.
24/7 and On3 and all of those. But yeah, I think there are definitely some scouts there. I've been told that there are, but they try to keep it quiet.
You can't see them in the corner with their binoculars, probably sitting in like a Chevy tinted windows or something.
Yeah, exactly. Up on a construction lift.
Yeah. So how is the traveling though? Because that must be pretty hard. I mean, you're young, so it's probably pretty fun now, but is that hard to manage with doing a lot of work?
Yeah, it is. And I wouldn't ever complain about it, because it's a lot of fun and it's great. But, I'm 28 and I have the energy for it now. So there's definitely a little bit of a scary feeling of like, okay, how many more years can I move at this kind of pace? But I'm loving it and I'm having fun. And I've always kind of lived by the mantra of I'll cross that bridge then.
Yeah.
It is a lot of travel. And, there's a lot of things that you sacrifice being on the road as much as I am. But at the same time, I love my job, and that's high on my priority, list right now is focusing on my career. So, stuff like seeing your family as much as you want to, or seeing your friends, or dating, and all these things make it hard when you're on the road a lot. But you're not going to hear me complaining about it. It's a great time.
Yeah, and that's the sports industry. I mean, they always say when are games played, weekends and nights. And a
Yep,
job like that you have, but got to broadcast games, that's just what you have to do. But love and passion is the most important thing.
it's there.
So how does overtime, because I'm really interested in this. You have your personal stuff and then you do overtime. Does overtime ever give you like any hassle with doing your personal things, or do they help you a lot with it?
It's a good question. I would say somewhere in the actually they really don't give me any hassle. I would say they sometimes help, and then other times it's stuff I do on the side. But like if they send me to an event, I'll take all of the content, and something will go on the overtime main page, and then it'll go on the overtime season football page, and then it might go on my page overtime day. So it kind of gets that. I would say that's the biggest way that they help my page, is that if they send me somewhere, I'll put some of the stuff on my personal as well, because it's also in their best interest to try to get me off and running as fast as I can. And it's definitely mutually beneficial, but at the same time, of course, the focus is on overtime stuff.
Yeah, and I saw you did change your TikTok name. It used to be Alex Day, but now it's Overtime Day.
On TikTok?
Yeah, right? Or is it still
No. It's always been
Oh,
overtime day. It used to be No Huddle Sports.
yeah.
That's when I started in the content game. That was the handle, and then when I started working for Overtime, I changed it.
Oh, okay. I love the interviews, by the way. I think they're hilarious. How do you
Thank
come
you.
up with those questions? Are they just on the spot, or you kind of just see a crazy outfit or a crazy entertaining guy?
Yeah, I would say it's partially on the spot. Part of it is like you have to judge a book by its cover. If I see someone with a funny jersey or a funny haircut, or they're walking into the stadium and they seem pretty drunk, come over here and have a few words. Like, I have a few questions, and
Yeah.
from there I try to think of it as simple and as filterless as possible, where it could be like, okay, now I have this chance to ask this person anything I want. So why do you have a blue mohawk? Are you that big of a Yankees fan? Like, do you normally have a blue mohawk?
Or the Tennessee fan.
Or the Tennessee fan. Yeah, the Tennessee fan was a riot. His son was like 15, and his son knew me. But then I thought the dad was so funny because the dad didn't know who I was, of course.
Yeah.
And the dad was so funny. I was like, you know what? I want to talk to him. Like, kid is funny, but the dad cracked me up.
Southern people are different. 2 years ago
Different.
when Auburn came up here for the Penn State whiteout, there was a ton of them. They're great people. They're very nice, but they're different.
They're different. They're different. Yeah. But they were having a good time before their Volunteers went into MSG and got spanked.
Yeah, who'd they lose to, by the way? I forgot.
They lost to not FAU. They lost
I think they did lose to FAU. Because I had them in Survivor.
Did they lose to FAU?
Yeah.
I'm getting the games mixed up. I was there, and there was back-to-back, and the first one was the Kansas State game.
Yeah.
And that was Say it again.
Against Creighton, or was that
against
too many games.
It's such a blur right now, but it was an unbelievable game by the New York City kid and
Michigan State in overtime.
Yes, thank you. Yes, against Izzo. So yeah, that was a fun night at the Garden.
Yeah. All right, so now I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you went to opening day in the Yankees.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I wish I went there. I was there on Sunday, which was still great. They won 6-0.
Yep.
With your vlogs, you do it like sometimes you do commentary, but on your other one, you kind of just like filmed videos and then piece it all together. Do you have like a director's vision of what you want it to be before, or you kind of just film and then piece it together?
That's such a great question. When I started doing vlogs, so much of it is figuring out like what's working on TikTok. And when I started doing vlogs, they weren't like that, and they were crushing. They were doing really well, and it was all voiceover. And what I would do is I would just record stuff on Snapchat, because that way you can flip the camera back and forth. I would save it, and then I'd piece them all together, usually in linear form of, hey, this is the order of events that it happened. And then that started to all of a sudden just not do as well. So I've been mixing it up. Something like opening day, or if it's like a special day, then I'll go through it with a timeline. Something where you wake up in the morning, it's a whole thing. I did that kind of vlog for like waking up at 6 a.m. for the USA soccer game when I was in LA. Yeah. Or opening day, you wake up and it's this whole thing. But then other times, you have to get creative with it. I think the main thing is that I'll go into it being like, okay, if I'm making content, I'm just going to record everything. A lot of times I don't really like to talk to the camera out in public.
That's just not who you are.
It's not that it's not who I am, because it very much is who I am. Yeah. But it's like, if you're out in public, like, do you want to be that guy? I mean, sometimes you have to be, but other times I'll just record something and then do the VO after, because it's a little more comfortable.
No, I hear you. I saw a guy at the Yankees game who literally had like this massive tripod with him in both hands. I
don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy.
We both just want to be one with the fans. It kind of sounds like.
Exactly. So, if I say, I will just record everything and I'll figure it out and post. But, so sometimes I'll go into it with a little bit of a direction of, this is the format I want to do.
Yeah, and I think it's much easier with big games like Rangers playoffs, like opening day. When I went to the game on Sunday, it was kind of a little bit harder because the hype wasn't quite there.
Right. Like I remember I went to the Giants-Eagles game at the Meadowlands in December, and I was going to do a vlog, and then that game sucked so bad.
It was 40-0 or something.
Oh, dude, it was. I mean, it was 21-0 at 3 minutes into the second quarter. Yeah. So for that, I was like, this is how the day started, and I was dancing in the parking lot, and then it was immediately the 3 back-to-back touchdowns by the Eagles, and I'm just sad boy in the Meadowlands. So it depends on the game and how much material you have to work with.
Yeah. What's the best game you've been to? The Rangers playoffs, I'm assuming, or maybe a Yankees game?
Rangers playoffs game against the Penguins.
Game 7?
Game 7, the bread goal. I've been to a lot of great games over the last 2 years for sure. I would say I would throw the Red River rivalry, Texas, Oklahoma last year. That's kind of a crazy answer, but I was on the Oklahoma side for that, almost like just coincidentally.
Yeah.
And Texas was up huge in the first half, and Caleb Williams led Oklahoma back, and the whole Oklahoma side stormed the field. And you're in the heart of Texas at the Texas State Fair, and like that was a wild experience, a really wild
I remember
experience.
that game. That was the start of Caleb Williams, and now he's a Heisman Trophy.
Right. It was
one of our pick.
Exactly. That was when Spencer Rattler got benched by Oklahoma.
Yeah, and before that, Spencer Rattler was projected to be the Heisman. Crazy story, actually, when you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Riley was on the team. Well, he was the coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spencer Rattler has like built himself back up a little bit, but
yeah, he has for sure.
But people, I mean, the thought of benching him at that point was kind of crazy.
So, Alex, I actually have a fun fact for you.
Hit me.
You remember the show? I'm not sure if you do it anymore, on Overtime with Matt James, where you guys would give out money.
Of course. It was called Parlay Hot Seat.
Yeah.
I still think that was a great show, but it really didn't have it didn't have the distribution necessary, I would say. But I do remember you on there. Did we give you money?
Yes, and I think it lost like 2 legs. I believe Cooper Kupp didn't go over his reception yards. I don't know why I remember this. It's 2 Super Bowls ago. And also the game went over. I had the under, or the opposite. I think I had the over and it went under. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up.
So for those who are like, what are these two talking about right now? It was a show called Parlay Hot Seat, where it was basically like Shark Tank, and people would call in and propose their parlays and try to get their parlays funded. And the 3 sharks, if you will, were me, Tyler Cameron, and Matt James from The Bachelor. And Ben called in, and that's when I first met Ben. And the show was on for most of not this past football season, but the year before. It was a great time. And sorry your parlay didn't hit.
No, that's okay. It was cool. It was a great setup that you guys had. I have to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, that studio is awesome, and we had fun. We had a lot of fun doing that show. I wish we still had that.
Yeah, I was always shocked though, because I thought it was a great show. You guys had Matt James, Tyler Cameron; those are big names,
right?
And I don't know, I just never really saw it a lot on TikTok. I was always a little surprised by that, but as you said, I guess the distribution wasn't there.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It bums me out, but it wouldn't surprise me if I go on some TV network one day and some network has ripped that show off.
Yeah, probably. Any show that you give away money is going to attract an audience.
Yeah, 100%.
So, what do you think about the Rangers? I'm a Devils fan, and I'm sure you're very high on your Rangers, but my Devils did take care of business last week. That doesn't really mean a whole lot. How do you feel about them going into the playoffs?
I feel good. Now, I think the Rangers are one of the, their skill level is undeniable. It's undeniable, but
top 6, I believe.
Best top 6, but there's some buts for sure in that, they're not as tough as some other teams. Like, Boston geared up, Toronto brought in a bunch of meat at the deadline. They're not as fast as the Devils. Igor isn't playing quite like Igor of every other season he's played. So I'm cautiously optimistic because
I wasn't expecting that answer.
Because if this team wins the cup, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I have a future on them to win. I've been watching every single game, but it still feels like they haven't played their best hockey together. So it makes me feel like, hey, if this team puts it together, they can do it. But Kane hasn't fully settled in yet. Tarasenko's playing a little bit better. Kreider's had a quiet couple weeks. But with all that being said, they're still winning. They're still, if you could win without playing your best in any sport, that's a comforting feeling. So I still want to see them start to put it together a little bit more. They need to get Ryan Lindgren back. I still have full confidence in them, but I need to see them start playing full complementary hockey.
No, I hear you.
Because they have all these great pieces and they haven't fully put it together yet. Not as quickly as last year, especially after last trade deadline when they brought in, Kopp and Vetrano and all these guys who aren't quite the same, name value as a Kane or a Tarasenko, but it gelled a little bit faster.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. And the Devils haven't been playing their best either, but I have been saying for months, Devils and Rangers, if they face, because the Devils could still get first place or the Rangers can get, well, it doesn't matter.
They would still play each other. It would just who has home ice.
Yeah, but if the Devils could get first place, I don't think it's going to
Oh,
happen.
if they catch Carolina?
Yeah, they're like
Oh, get out of here. Get out of here.
3. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is possible. I've been saying Devils in 7. But you mentioned Ryan Lindgren, and this might sound crazy. He's the most important player on the Rangers. You saw what happened last playoffs. He gritted out, but when he didn't play, it was a totally different defense.
I would say I would change that adjective to most underappreciated. I wouldn't say he's the most important because I would frankly say his line mate, Adam Fox, is more important. But yeah, I completely agree with you that, for a team that kind of lacks sandpaper, like the Rangers do, yes, Lindgren is probably a couple inches shy of 6 feet tall, but he plays playoff hockey, and the Rangers don't have enough guys who play playoff hockey. So the guys that they do have, they have to carry a heavy load in the playoffs. So they need him back. I'm worried about the Devils' speed. Now, I think the Rangers are better than the Devils. I think they're more talented than the Devils. I think they have better goaltending.
3-0-1 against the Rangers this season.
Correct, but it's
different season.
It's like they're built like an Al Davis Raiders team. They just have speed, and that kind of speed, it's tough to play against, but that speed doesn't always translate to the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. And look, I will say this about the Devils. They're not that big, and they don't have that much playoff experience. They do have Andre Palat. He's one guy. He only has 2 goals in his past 18 games, and he plays on the third line.
Right.
But, that is an issue.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the Rangers made all these additions, and it's their third line that's been playing the best over the last 2 weeks. The kid line with Hedel and Laffy and Kakko. So the Rangers now have that experience that they didn't fully have last year, and it kind of feels like the Devils are a year ahead of schedule. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, that's very safe to say. If you go on my Instagram, I said they're going to finish in 7th place, and now Jack Hughes has 40 goals, and they're in 2nd.
Right, exactly. So the future is definitely bright for them, but I hope the present is awfully cloudy.
Well, if the Rangers lose in the first round, can we both agree that it's a total embarrassment and a failure?
Think so? Now I would say yes, but actually, if they lose to the Devils in the first round, yes, I would say that. But the way they geared up, I wouldn't judge it as I would in other years because it feels like every team in the Eastern Conference also geared up like the Rangers did.
Yeah.
I have never seen a league in any sport go, or not just a league, a conference go as crazy at any trade deadline as the Eastern Conference did this year. Boston going all in, Toronto going all in, Rangers making moves, big moves, Devils making big moves, Islanders making big moves. Carolina brought in a couple guys. Yeah. So seeing, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams think, hey, this, let's make a run for it. All while Boston is having one of the best seasons of all time. It's kind of crazy. So, if they get bounced earlier than expected, it would be a bummer. I think if you get bounced by the Devils, that would be a failure, mostly just because of timeline. The Devils are ahead of schedule, and you got to take care of business against the Devils.
Yeah, what's crazy? I saw this yesterday. Devils and the Rangers have the same exact Stanley Cup odds. I mean, that makes sense. They're going to face each other. But I would think that the Rangers have better odds just based on their talent.
Me too. But if you can translate the speed in the regular season to the playoffs, dangerous out.
Yeah. But as you said, the Eastern Conference is an absolute gauntlet. Nobody is talking about the Western Conference, but nobody especially is talking about the Avalanche. They won the Cup last year, and now they had a bad start because they had injuries, but now they're healthy, and all they do is win. That's a team to look out for.
I think the Stanley Cup champion comes out of the East.
Out of the East, yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be the Maple Leafs, if not the Devils. I know it sounds absolutely insane, But I don't know. I just think
I need to see the Devils win. I need to see the Maple Leafs win a playoff series before I say
Yeah.
that they're going to win the cup.
I think they can beat Tampa, but I also said that last year because Tampa they did the same exact thing. Bad end to the regular season, kind of stumble into the playoffs, and then they flip a switch. They even got crushed in game 1 last year. They lost 5-0.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tampa's been there and done that, and Toronto needs to get the monkey off their back. I correctly picked that series last year, which I felt bad, I felt bad about picking correctly, but it's Tampa Bay. Like Toronto is so in their own way that I need to see them win a series before I start making some bold predictions about the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, well, as I said, I know I sound crazy. All right, last sports thing for you.
Yeah, let's go.
What do you think? Well, who do you want the Giants to draft? Any big names? I know I have a name who I really want to see play for the Giants. I want to see if you mention him.
So I think, in years past, it's been easier to be like, oh, I want so-and-so because the Giants have had really top 10 picks. And being in the 20s is a pleasant surprise.
It's good. Very good.
I think there's one name that if he slips to the Giants, you have to take Jordan Addison from USC.
Yeah,
that would be a dream spot. I'm not fully sold on a lot of the other guys. I could get talked into any. I could also get talked out of any, like kid from TCU, Zay Flowers from BC. I think those guys are both outstanding. But also, if you wanted to say, hey, those are guys that mostly play in the slot and they need a big body that could play on the outside, that's, you've talked me out of it too. I also wouldn't hate looking at offensive guard.
Okay.
It's not a sexy answer, but I feel like the Giants have added depth to their wide receiver room, and they needed to do that, but they're still short of a wide receiver one. So if you're going to go and draft a wide receiver, it better be a guy with wide receiver one potential ceiling. So, I don't want to draft a 5'9" guy just because he's another weapon. They have guys like that. They need a true number one. They need a guy like they thought Galladay was going to be, a big number one. So if that's not there, I think you have to help up the middle, especially with how some of these other teams in the NFC East are loading up on their interior of their D line. I've watched too many Giant seasons be sabotaged by the offensive line that I'm so paranoid about it, and especially losing Gates and Feliciano. That wouldn't bother me if the wide receiver that they want doesn't fall to them.
Well, I have seen many Jets seasons get crushed by the offensive line and other aspects as well, but you gotta have a line.
So
go.
Who are you thinking of?
The guy who I was thinking of, this is biased. I go to Penn State. Joey Porter Jr. Giants cornerbacks aren't the best. I would love the Jets to take him, but they got Sauce and other guys. Joey Porter Jr. is a freak.
I'm with that. They desperately need a DB2 to play alongside Adoree Jackson, especially in Wink Martindale's defense where he just wants to blitz.
I love that, by the way.
Oh, my God. I mean, look, I love Brian Daboll more than anything. He's like the new Tony Soprano around here. Yep. But Wink is just as important to the Giants, I would say, as Dabes is. And what he squeezed out of that defense last year, that defense had no business being as good as it was.
No, they had nobody. They were all injured.
Right. So I love that. I love that pick with Joey Porter Jr. I'd be psyched.
Yeah, trust me. He's really good, and obviously, his dad played for the Steelers, so he's got it in the blood.
Of course, I met Joey Porter on vacation when I was in high school, and he was sitting by the pool, and I saw the big 55 tattoo on his shoulder, and me being me, I couldn't help but go up to him. I had to chop it up with him, and I played cards with him and his friends for like 45 minutes, and he was the coolest dude. That's my Joey Porter story from 2000. I don't know, 12.
That's sweet. Where was that? In Aruba or somewhere?
It was in the Bahamas. I was probably, maybe I was in college. It was either late high school or early college. So probably somewhere around like 2012, 2013.
That's really cool. And I saw you also bumped into your boys Igor Panarin and someone else. Kratzov, was it? I know it was the Russians.
Yeah. So that was crazy. When I lived in LA for 2.5 months at the end of 2022, I had a friend who lived there. Friend was away. I was subletting his apartment. It was great. And I would go to the same bar for NFL Sundays. It's a place called Big Dean's. It's in
Big
Santa
Dean,
Monica.
They have that downtown here. It's a chicken place, not a bar.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I love that. This is just like a sports bar, like a dive bar. And I'm in there and I'm watching. It's also technically a Giants bar too. So I had to go
That's
there.
cool.
And I look over and I see Sam Rosen. I'm like, oh my God, it's Sam Rosen, you know? Yeah, because that a guy like Sam Rosen is a big reason why I wanted to do what I'm doing now for a living. So I had to go up and talk to him. And while I'm talking to him, I look over, I'm like, wait a minute. That's there was a table with Kreids, Fox, VZ, Trocheck, and Lindgren. I'm like, okay, so
American guys.
Right. I'm like, okay, so they're here because they played the Ducks the night before. They're playing the Kings tomorrow. Truba was there with them too. I didn't want to go up to just the full table. I told my waiter, hey, send that to, and no one was going up to these guys. I mean, they're a bunch of hockey players on the other side of the country, you know?
Yeah.
I said, next round is on me. So when they ordered their beers, the waiter pointed over, just held up a beer, cheers. And my buddy, I have a buddy who's friends with Fox, so I ended up going over and talked to them for a bit. I carried on with my day, and then I ran into the Russian Rangers with Igor Panarin and Kravtsov, and they were playing backgammon, and I talked to them for a little bit, and just
that's cool.
All-time funny coincidence.
Just normal guys. I mean, some people think of athletes as like different.
These aren't Hollywood guys; they're hockey players, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And
you
just said nobody even recognized them.
Yeah, look, I'm sure if these guys went out in New York City, different story, but. Yeah. They're in Santa Monica in December, you know.
Yeah. How is Fox? I'm sure he's cool. He went to Harvard, right?
Fox went to Harvard. Yeah, I mean, normal dude.
Yeah, no, that's
normal cool. Dude. Just seemed like a Long Island kid.
Just like Charlie McAvoy as well.
Just like Charlie McAvoy, exactly right.
So we'll end off this episode. Could you share, like, I guess, any overall advice for someone like me and other people who want to pursue a career in sports media?
Yeah, I would say two things. One is look at where the direction of things are going. For instance, when I was coming out of school, my job that I have now really didn't exist. And I also knew that I didn't want to do local news for me personally. So
same.
I was always kind of looking at the digital side and okay, let me make my switch later. So try to think of where it's going, not just where it is now. Like if you don't want to do that now, then find another way to do it, you know? And I think the other thing is don't get discouraged because, it's a long road. And, I started out in production. I was doing production for 4 years. I was a producer, shooter, editor. I worked for Duke. I worked for the Yankees. I loved it. I was working in sports. I was at places I loved. But I wasn't exactly doing what I loved, and I stuck with it. And then when I was doing content, I was doing no clicks for months and months and months. But I stuck with it. And I think you can't be discouraged with that process because, if you work in sports, you have to love it because, as we were talking about before, it is a lot of hours. Not just a lot of hours, but a lot of weird hours. And for the first couple of years, you're underpaid, like way underpaid.
That's what I hear from everybody.
You're right. So you're underpaid, you're working weird hours, and you're probably not doing exactly what you want to be doing. So you got to make sure you love it. You can't get discouraged when it's not going your way because for me to be like, oh, I am waking up and I'm not only going to a place that I love because I worked in Yankee Stadium. That was a dream, but yeah. I was sitting at a desk editing for 6-7 hours a day. It took me till I was 27 to be doing that. So, and in the grand scheme of things, I'm lucky it was that early, but it was five years after graduation. So, just make sure you love it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And where are you living right now? Are you in the city? It's a nice
Yep.
place.
Yep. I'm in the city. And the overtime office is in Brooklyn. So it's
Oh,
about like
okay.
a 35, 40-minute commute every day. And
Really? On the subway?
yeah, take
Wow.
the 6 to the F. So it's
Well, could be worse.
definitely
Yeah.
not bad at all.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for coming on here. I had a blast talking with you. And anytime you want to come on, you always have the invite. And if you want to shout out your socials, go right
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, man. On Instagram and TikTok, it's at Overtime Day. It's actually the same thing on Twitter too. I'm trying to get my Twitter up a
I
little
was
bit, but
looking for your Twitter to
I
tag you and I couldn't find it.
it's Overtime on Twitter. It's Overtime_day.
Oh,
Someone beat me to it. Yeah, shame on them.
damn.
But
Well,
yeah, Overtime Day on all Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. So you can find me there. A lot of New York sports content and a lot of other stuff. So, but Ben,
awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. Great
No,
seeing you again after our parlay hot seat we
yeah.
had in a year ago.
Yep, we'll make sure to stay in touch. And for everybody watching, thank you very much. And you know where to follow me: TikTok, Ben the Sports Guy; Twitter, Ben Wasserman. For everyone, have a great day. Take care.